Now, it doesn't matter where you are in the world or if you are even into watches or not, you've probably heard of a brand called Rolex. Now, it's not just coincidence that everybody knows what Rolex is. The brand has carefully created for itself an impeccable reputation, and it's taken a long time to do this. But is owning a Rolex watch really worth the hype? Hey guys, welcome to my channel. My name is Ricardo Hawks, and today we're discussing whether or not the hype around Rolex is really worth it and whether or not you should buy one of these watches. We can ask lots of different questions here. Are these just overpriced pieces of jewelry? Are they really any good? Are they the best watches you can buy? Is it all just a marketing ploy to separate you from your money and make you feel like you're part of a special club? To answer these questions, we first need to look at the history of the brand and watchmaking as a whole. So where did the idea of a watch come from? We know that ancient civilizations used sundials and water clocks and various methods to track the passage of time. By the 14th century, mechanical clocks began appearing in Europe. They started off very big and then became smaller and smaller as time went by. And by the 1500s, pocket watches emerged in Germany and quickly became popular among the wealthy. It was mostly men who wore these pocket watches, whilst wristwatches were viewed mainly as jewellery for women. But then came a big shift. Soldiers during World War I found wristwatches far more practical than pocket watches, especially in combat situations where hands-free timekeeping was crucial. This military adoption helped change public perception, making wristwatches both fashionable and functional for men. So where did Rolex come into all this? In 1905, the brand was created by Alfred Davis and his brother-in-law Hans Willdorf, although it wasn't until a few years later that it was renamed Rolex that we know today by Hans. During World War I, Rolex was making trench watches, and it was here that soldiers started to notice the difference in quality between a Rolex and standard issue watches. Rolex watches were more expensive, yes, but they were much more accurate and seen as something the troops could spend their hard-earned wages on. After World War I, Rolex's early success was built on its waterproof wristwatch, the Oyster. In 1926, the Oyster was a breakthrough in design and technology, with a hermetically sealed case that protected the movement from water and dust. Rolex continued to innovate, introducing the first self-winding mechanism in 1931 and the date just in 1945, a watch with an automatically changing date display. It should be noted that although Rolex were very good at making watches, they were far better at something else: marketing. Rolex knew how to make a big deal about itself. Let's take a look at one example. In 1927, British swimmer Mercedes Gleitz swam the English Channel with an oyster on her necklace. To celebrate this, Rolex published a full-page advertisement on the front page of the Daily Mail newspaper for every issue for a whole month. And here's another great example. During World War II, Royal Air Force pilots were buying Rolex watches to replace their standard issue watches. However, when captured and sent to prisoner of war camps, their watches were taken away from them. Hans Willdorf heard about this and did something really amazing. He offered to replace all the watches that had been confiscated and offered to do this basically for free. He told the soldiers he didn't want payment until the end of the war. This rallied the morale among the prisoners because it indicated that Hans did not believe that the Germans would win the war. American servicemen also heard about this when stationed in Europe, and this helped to open up the American market to Rolex after the war. Rolex continued to innovate throughout the years and grew to become the powerhouse it is today. There was always something new, a new invention or unique feature that meant Rolex watches were always sought after. As we've just seen, the history of the brand is so strong that it influences people's decision to buy. A watch brand with a long, deep history is often more desirable because it represents things like craftsmanship and prestige. In contrast, newer or less established brands can't really compete with this unless they have a really groundbreaking product. So we know that Rolex as a brand is sought after due to its history and clever marketing, but what about the watches themselves? So let's look at build quality and how Rolex watches are actually made. Rolex produces nearly every component of his watches in-house and operates 4 major production sites in Switzerland. The Les Acacias site in Geneva is Rolex's corporate headquarters and also where final assembly and quality control take place. It's where all components come together and each completed watch is rigorously tested before leaving the factory. The BN site is home to the facility responsible for manufacturing Rolex's mechanical movements. It produces everything from gear trains and escapements to the iconic Parachrom hairsprings which are found in most of their full-size models. Plaille-Watt is Rolex's largest production site, often called the Rolex campus. It's where the brand manufactures its Oyster and Jubilee cases, bracelets and bezels. It's also where the brand smelts and refines its own gold, platinum and steel alloys for use in different watches. Finally, the Shenbo facility focuses on dial manufacturing and decoration, including colour application, text printing, and setting diamonds or other precious stones. Once every aspect of a Rolex watch is created, the assembly time only takes between 3 and 4 hours. But when you spread apart the production process from start to finish, this includes planning, designing, creation and materials, testing and so on, the entire process takes around 9 months. Now, there is a common myth that a Rolex watch takes a year to make, but this is just clever wording and marketing from the brand. But what's important to take away from this is the sheer attention to detail when making a Rolex watch. They take their time when building one to make sure each watch is perfect for the end user. So, looking at the movements now, Rolex have made a name for themselves not for just what's on the outside, but what's on the inside. Rolex have some pretty famous movements and they're all very cool, but they really push the boundaries when it comes to innovation. The best way to demonstrate this is to talk about the most complex movement of all, the caliber 9001. The 9001 stands as the brand's most intricate creation to date and is found in the Rolex Skydweller. So what sets this movement apart? Well, for starters, it can simultaneously track 2 time zones. The home time appears on a 24-hour disc positioned off-center, while the main hour and minute hands reflect the local time. It's also equipped with an annual calendar, a feature that only needs to be manually corrected once a year, distinguishing between months with 30 and 31 days, and tracking both the date and the month. The 9001 also has a ring command bezel system made up of 60 individual components. This clever mechanism links the bezel directly to the movement, allowing the user to rotate the bezel to select which function they want to adjust with the crown. It's also worth mentioning that the finishing of Rolex movements is pretty much perfect. You'll never find dust, grit or imperfections in your Rolex movement. And this is largely due to the sterile environments where these movements are created. Rolex movements are also extremely precise. Every movement is COSC certified as a chronometer and then tested again by Rolex to meet even stricter in-house standards. These movements are highly resistant to shocks and magnetic fields, and use of high-performance lubricants that extend both the accuracy and service intervals of the watch. All Rolex watches undergo rigorous quality control, including stress tests, durability tests, and water resistance tests. So Rolex has very high standards when producing their watches, but they are very expensive. So the question stands, are they worth the money? I find the best way to approach this is to ask yourself the following questions. Who are you buying it for? What's your financial situation? How much do you love watches? Is this an investment or a passion? So let's start off with the first question. You might be buying a Rolex for somebody else. Maybe it's a wedding gift. Maybe you're trying to impress your partner. Whatever the reason here, it's safe to assume this isn't a personal passion and you're probably just trying to make somebody else happy. In which case, go for it. However, if you're buying this for yourself, ask yourself the next 3 questions. What's your financial situation? Again, we can assume if you're planning to buy a Rolex, you've got some extra cash in the bank or a big bonus coming in. These are not affordable watches, with the cheapest coming in at around $5,000 for ladies' sizes, and you'll pay more than that for men's sizes. If this doesn't seem to bother you, then you can go ahead and move on to the next question. How much do you love watches? If, like me, you love watches and you've fallen in love with a certain Rolex model, this is a great sign. Do your research about the watch. Make sure you understand the specifications and what it's mainly used for. Go into a store and try it on if possible. Most ADs will let you try on the common models such as the Submariner, Datejust and Oyster Perpetual. And that leads me on to the final question. Is this an investment or a passion? Now, I'm not going to sit here and tell you not to buy a watch as a financial investment. I do know a lot of people who do this and there is potential to make money. Money makes the world go round and this is just the way things are. Having said that, I think buying a Rolex should be an act of passion. You should want the watch because you've fallen in love with it, not because it might be worth $1,000 more in 3 years. And I feel like this is what the original founders would have wanted. Their watches to be celebrated because of the thought and care embedded in their creation. When watchmaking is driven purely by profit, timepieces risk becoming disposable status symbols, stripped of their deeper meaning. So for me personally, Rolex are definitely one of the best watchmakers in the world, and they are definitely worth the money. Most of their models are anyway. Hence why I've bought one. Are they the best watches you can buy? No. There are plenty of other premium brands out there that spend much more time and money perfecting their models. Rolex's history also fascinates me, but I'm always cautious of brands using their history as a marketing tool. And sadly, in the world of watchmaking, this is all too common. I like to look for real value in things. And for me, that's build quality, functionality, and how a watch makes me feel. My Yachtmaster here is, to me, the best looking Rolex on the market. I fell in love with it many years ago, before I could even afford one. It's got everything I need, it makes me happy when wearing it, it looks good with almost everything I wear, and it's built to last and pass on to a new generation. Even if it lost all its market value, or suddenly became uncool, I would still keep it in my collection because I've made that connection to it. And I'm hoping that that's what you guys watching can do as well. So to top it all off, Rolex is a brand that's easy to fall in love with, but I'd only buy one if you felt that spark. Thanks for watching this video, guys. I hope it helped you on your journey to buying a Rolex watch or not. And let me know in the comments what you think. I'll see you next time.